My mic's finally working on OBS. So, welcome to 623 Podcast, the first episode, a podcast about waking up new ways of thinking about fighting games. Of course, I am ATO Riot, and this is Nicholas the guy. He already introduced himself, but I'm Riot. Hey, you can check my name right here. It's right there. Nice, cool. Okay, so yeah, we talk about the mental here on the 6223 podcast, but today we're specifically be talking about the comeback game plan. When you're down 1 HP or down 1v3 in a team fighter, what is the mindset you need to have in order to be able to deny all the negative thoughts that you may have and going into the set there. So, Nick, do you want to take over the first point?
Yeah, do you mind just populating that image I sent you earlier?
Yeah, got you. All right, it is up.
So, as Riot mentioned, we're going to be talking about the combat game plan and mindset. Um, this this image, I think, perfectly depicts what exactly we're going to be talking about. Um, we've been we've been scheming about topics and ideas about what we're going to be talking about for quite some time now, but I think we have quite the interesting agenda for everyone listening and tuning in. Um, so the image is from Dragon Ball Fighters. Some of you may have played, or Riot and I have definitely played.
Yep.
But this can be applicable to pretty much any fighting game. This could be Street Fighter. This could be Guilty Gear. This could be Smash Bros. Could be anything. Uh, we this situation isn't new to any fighting game player. Even in video games in general, like when you're playing a shooter, or I guess in this case a fighting game, or anything really, like there's always going to be a moment where you're stuck, where you have little resources, your health bar is next to none. We've all been there, we've all done that. But what we're going to be talking about today, as we mentioned before, is how do we think when we're positioned in this particular situation. And the first point we have today is being able to understand when you're doing things that you shouldn't. So, for example, like scrambling versus um, practicing composure, understanding what you're actually doing. Um, so, for example, like when in this particular image, when it's 1v3, when it's 1v1, low resources, um, what we see, and right, you might be able to back me up on this. I think everyone will be able to, but I think everyone has seen themselves or other people just start to do things that they shouldn't, or they start to mash, or they commit to actions that they've never really practiced, or they just commit to actions that don't really make sense to themselves, but out of pure instinct they gravitate to these decisions. Right, would you agree with me on that?
Yeah, most definitely. You see, of course, a lot of scrambles and people kind of not really taking the time to kind of just even just the 1 second to just chill out and just pick the most favorable position or favorable option.
Yeah, it's, man, we low level, medium level, average level, high level. I think we're all victim to it, and I think it comes down to uh, applying what we haven't even practiced. In just to compare it to actual like combat sports, for example, which myself and Wright have done before, and you might have again realized this in your time training, Riot.
Yeah,
People often scramble in these situations too, but it's a lot. Obviously, it's a lot different than a fighting game. But at the end of the day, people are doing things that they weren't really taught, or they haven't really taught themselves. You, it's it's perfectly depicted by them. Uh, like you can see them just doing things that, and you'll see it right off the bat. You'll see them do things that don't seem very recognizable to themselves. Like they'll commit to actions that, again, they have never really practiced. So what's important here, especially in the image that we showed before, finding times to just chill out, finding times to just compose yourself, um, whether it's during the transition, um, of like or not necessarily the transition, but if there's any downtime during the match, in this case in Dragon Ball Fighters, when it switches from like to your next character, you know what transition I'm talking about, right?
Yeah,
When your character dies and then your next character comes out,
yeah,
like that small moment where that transition's happening, it's those small moments that high level players will take advantage of to take the time to just relax, chill out, um, and just really compose themselves and not rely on instinct. What do you think about that?
yeah. Of course, it comes with experience and time to be able to not even just scenarios like that, but even just a regular, like just in a regular match where you're just already in the tag out animation, and you're already like playing the neutral and all that stuff. Like it sometimes does take just a small scenario, but it takes the experience to be able to be in these situations and then being able to just know immediately, okay, I had to take this course of action right now, right? Granted, you mentioned about being a lower level mid or even like an intermediate level player. Those players kind of course, don't have the game sense in order to understand like what exactly should they be thinking in that scenario. So even like a high level player during the toggle animation, they're going to be, of course, thinking about, okay, so they have this character, and we're about this far apart after the tag out animation ends. So I think I can do this scenario, which will most likely beat this what they might want to do playing the RPS. But of course, it's just repping it out every day, every second. So I think that will essentially help when you are now in the 1v3 or even a 1v2. Just understanding, just break it down piece by piece, right? Not so much, oh my god, I gotta take down three characters, right? It's essentially, so this character is out right now and I have mine. What exactly can I do to put my character in a favorable position or a position where that's advantageous for me? So I think starting where understanding your strengths and weaknesses of your character, or if you're at that point, even yourself as a player or your opponent as a player, and kind of understanding, how to start playing around that RPS or that mind game to kind of cut down on the fear of having to make that comeback in the first place. So I think that's a pretty crucial thing that you brought up.
Yeah, and just going back to the image, just for the audio listeners. So what we pointed out before was, as you guys can see, but obviously not the audio listeners, but so it's the infamous, and this is probably one of my favorite 1 HP or near 1 HP comeback scenarios. Um, Goichi versus Leffen. I think if you haven't watched it, you got to watch it.
That's
But
a
this was during the,
that's a
yeah,
top
this is a
five
banger.
moment, top five moment of all time.
Seriously, you don't even have to be a fan of fighting games to really appreciate exactly what happened in this final game. But um, again, uh, Goichi versus Leffen, 1-1. Uh, Dragon Ball Fighters is first to two, or at least, yeah, no, it's first to
Yeah,
two.
first two.
Goichi is down to just Bardock, and Leffen has all three characters who are all relatively around like half life around ish. Um, no spark, and Go One has a lot of meter. And the situation is reset to neutral since uh, Vegeta just died and Bardock is in. So they're squaring up. And at this point in time, I think a lot of people, as you mentioned, like will struggle to control their own emotions. Because it's very, again, especially in a 1v3 or in a team fighter, when you see that you have, just one character versus three, it can be very daunting, um, to see, two, three characters versus just your lonesome
Yeah,
last character. Um, and I think that's important not to disregard because I mean, if you're new to fighting games, or even, you know, if you're a seasoned veteran, like being on stage, having your boys cheer you on, having that stress, and then having to look at three other characters versus your one, like again, super stressful. But that's what's going on. And I want to talk about this next point where we also see a lot of people struggle. And it starts with this screen. It starts with this moment of just looking at what you have, what you don't have, and all the things that your opponent has. It's very easy to resort to negative emotions or emotions uh, that create fear, um, encourage you to give up. Those emotions will naturally come. But what separates the high level players is the ability to control not necessarily all their emotions, but the ones that are really digging their nails into you. So whether that's like fear, as I mentioned, I guess uncertainty would be considered another, I guess, feeling, because you don't know what's going to happen. I
Yeah.
mean, you have 5 bars, you only have one character, they have three.
Yeah, and even
But I
piggybacking off
think,
of that. Oh, sorry.
yeah, yeah, no, go ahead, go
All
ahead.
right. Yeah, kind of piggyback off that too. There also could be a
Hmm.
fear factor because since it's a team fighter, there are some characters that aren't good at being alone, right? Which I think that's a factor to kind of play into these scenarios as well.
Hmm.
Of course, being a team fighter, you have characters who are good by themselves or just good meter builds, good batteries, good, very good, strong with assists. They can do okay with one. They might be decent by themselves. So that's also kind of playing to a part here. Now, of course, I'm not that knowledgeable of DBFZ in that sense. But I would even say for Goichi to have a solo Bardock right now, even though they do have almost 6 bars, it's almost like 5.75 bars. Solo Bardock, I'm not even confident. I'm not the one playing, right? So I think having kind of a mindset going into it of even though your character might not be that solid solo, you kind of want to just still play the game and still play individual matchups and play one at a time, right? Of course, resources are on the line here. Of course, we mentioned earlier before, Gucci having almost 6 bars, Leffen having almost only one with a full team. So it's kind of, I don't want to say it's favorable, but it's at least more favorable than it could be for Guichi right now. So I think that's also something to point out too when a team fighter in that mindset. But you can keep going, my bad.
Yeah, no, 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 you're good. Yeah, especially in a team fighter, because again, it can be easily daunting, and we don't want to discredit these emotions because they can very well appear at any given moment, especially in a situation like this. But um, right now, it's at least for this point, definitely want to bring up the fact that you will inevitably experience negative emotions, but it's very important to understand what those emotions are and being able to channel those emotions to opportunities. So, which brings us to our next point. Uh, on the topic of controlling negative emotions, the mindset needed then for 1 HP scenarios, y- the player needs like this. There's no debate. There needs to be some sort of like diligence to channel those emotions. There needs to be some resilience. Well, not some. Just you need to be able to understand what it means to be resilient, um, and not necessarily be too negative, but I guess for some people where it's extremely hard to not be negative, I guess in that point, being negative, like welcoming negativity, but as I said, being able to channel such negativity in such a way that benefits you. So, for example, if I'm scared, I guess referencing the image, Bardock versus Cell, Bardock versus 3 characters, anyone in their right mind would be quite fearful for their lives. And it's the last game, last round. Like this is next to impossible from a low level player's perspective, right?
Yeah.
So what's important here is, if you're scared, take the time to just chill out, control the pace of the round. I think if I remember correctly, in this scenario, Goichi doesn't just rush in. He doesn't just super dash. He doesn't just rush down cell. He takes time to understand, okay, or at least judging from his gameplay, he takes time to understand what resource he has. He's waiting for Leffen to make a mistake. He's probably recalling all the mistakes Leffen made before. He's probably recalling all the things that he's done before that succeeded. Take your time, It's okay for those negative emotions to flow in, but you got to be able to just grab them and channel them in the right direction, and not just accept defeat. Um, and at the end of the day, I mean, the classic saying, "It's not over until it's over." Right, right.
Yep, most definitely.
What is it? What does that mean to you though? Like you've been playing fighting games for what, like 4, 5, 6 years now. Like
Yeah.
how has this quote like shaped you in this particular scenario?
Um, a lot of ways, both on the winning angle and the losing angle. Right.
It's a good way to put it.
So I guess depending on what side you're on, it could really just be, you know, it not. I guess specifically in this scenario, right? Uh, from Guichi's standpoint, even though Leffen doesn't have much resources, he has a full team with pretty high damaging characters on his side as well. So really, any hit, even with him beating only the one bar, is going to be a guaranteed kill for Guichi, and that's going to be a 2-1 victory for Leffen. Right? So Guichi kind of has to thread carefully, but also not too carefully where he's not going to essentially kind of just throw the game or just play too passive. Um, but from Leffen's standpoint, I think most people in that scenario who have three characters up to their opponent's one, they're gonna want to slack off, right? They're gonna want to, start being comfortable, start messing around. They think they can just kind of just, go willy nilly and then just do whatever they want because they're up, right? But doing that against a player like Guichi, or not even just Guichi, like even you know like Lord Knight, right, or Hook Gang God, you're not gonna do that and get away with it, you know. So you have to always stay in the pocket the entire time because you can't just think it's over because you're up or it's over because you're down, right? I mean, we have seen countless of comebacks, and we have seen countless of people, being competent. We've seen what was that one year? It was like the Cavs or something like that came back from like 3-1, something like that in the playoffs. Like weren't
They were
they?
down.
Yeah, they were down, but they came back. We have seen that many times in many sports, many scenarios. Nobody is immune to it. So that's pretty much the epitome of it is at which is over. Now, kind of piggybacking off of what I said earlier about Guichi not wanting to play too passive, I guess we'll kind of also touch into another point of it being Guichi has to essentially play to win and not play to not lose, right? It's gonna sound crazy, but I in my quest of finding a play that didn't tilt me within 0.2 seconds, right? I have been soul searching, and I have been getting into the competitive Overwatch scene. Not that crazy. I kind of just play other games, just kind of I like to sweat. I like to compete, right? So I like to train myself, get better, all that stuff. So in that time, I've been looking at Overwatch content creators, right? And one being Emong, right? A very solid tank player. Um, and he made a good point when he was VAR viewing somebody is a lot of people will not play to win, but they'll play to not lose, right? And essentially, what this entails is you are essentially playing in a way where you're just too afraid to actually make something happen, right? But at the end of the day, playing to not lose will cause you to cause playmaking relative to being scared and not having determination. Uh, so your actions need to have purposes, and you need to have not necessarily do like the most like big brain play, but you need to recognize that you are down, so you have to make the move, right? If their opponent was playing smart, they could just chill out, right? Like Leffen has two assists backing him up, not much meter, obviously, right? But nonetheless, he can protect himself, right? He's up, he can let time run out, right? Goichi is the one that has to have the ball in their court and essentially make the move, right? Or make Leffen commit to something and then punish it, right? So he's analyzing the scenario, right? Like what Nick was saying earlier, He's not backing off. He's not just double jumping back for 18 seconds, right? He's analyzing, taking his time, and then making a move, making a left and do something, right? Make a left and commit to something that Goichi knows he can punish it, right? So essentially, playing to not lose, like I said earlier, it can help you. It'll cause you, my bad, to not be determined, not have purpose, and kind of just be passive the entire time, right? You're already one hit or one combo away from death, so why are you gonna be afraid, right? At least that's my take on it. I don't know if you had something to add to that, Nick, before we move on, but at least that's my take. Is you're already gonna lose, like I said before, like Goichi is one hit from death with a full team, so why should he be afraid um, in that regard? That's my thing.
Yeah, if I were to mention anything, I mean, I think you covered it. But if I were to add anything, I think it's a lot of people. I don't want to say any sort of skill level in particular, but anyone really are susceptible to the idea that you know when they're in a position where it may seem impossible, they lose sight of the idea that there will always be a condition for winning, right?
Yeah,
And what I mean by that is like, if just referencing back to the image, going versus Leffen, last game, last round, um, people don't take their time to realize that it takes one move. Even this past Evo, Punk versus Big Bird.
yeah.
You remember that grand
Yeah,
finals?
I remember watching Punk's reaction too, and he explained, him and Big Bird, they explained exactly what situation caused the
Yeah,
the loss.
yeah. It only took one jump in. It took one thing, and a lot of people think, oh, I gotta do this, I gotta do A, B, C, I gotta do one, two, three, I gotta do all these things just to come back and win. But really, it only takes one particular moment that you can successfully capitalize on in order to change the entire tide. Because if you capitalize that one moment, things just start to flow in your favor, or at least it can start to flow.
Yeah,
And it's unfortunate to see people be so scared of trying to find that moment, whether it's a jump in, whether it's um finding a lucky low forward, maybe it's baiting a burst in Guilty Gear. I don't know. No one will really know. But the thing is, again, people are just, as you mentioned, like they're afraid of trying to find those conditions for winning. But really, once again, it only takes that one moment. So, when we are in that situation of needing to come back or struggling to come back or struggling to find that certain win condition, it's always important to remember, like, it's never impossible. If it takes longer to find that condition for winning, then it just takes longer. If it takes um you know if it doesn't take too long versus it takes long, like, you don't know how long it's going to take. You
yeah,
just have to put in the effort and then just go from there. But what's important is just not giving up, constantly looking for that one moment, that one opportunity. I sounded like Eminem just now. um Mom spaghetti. uh One opportunity, one moment. No, but that's really what it is. It just takes one. It only takes one. It always takes one.
yeah.
And we can't be afraid to search for that one condition for winning. But yes, if you had anything else to expand off that was just my take.
Nah, just a funny story. 'Cause I keep getting meme for this every time by one of my friends. There are a lot of times in my streams where I'm playing a match where there's a tournament set or just regular friendlies versus sevens or whatever, and it's a close game, close set, and then I get hit, right? And I'm like, oh man, I'm dead. That's crazy. I lost, right? Whatever. Next game, right? Because naturally I got better with taking a loss. I'm trying to just chill, right? However, my opponent for some odd reason drops the combo, right?
Oh my
And
gosh.
then my immediate response, they keep making fun of me for this, but my immediate response is always, "Oh, they didn't want to win for real." They didn't want to win for real. They are pacifists or something like that, something to that degree, right? And then I just get a hit and I just win, So even something like that, but it just came with experience, right? At the end of the day, so if you're finding yourself in a scenario, I know our friend Fed a while ago, he used to actually, you know what, this actually segue into another point actually. So how to get better at low life scenarios or 1 HP scenarios, you can just drill it, right? Our friend Fed a while ago, when he was playing Gizzy Gear Strive consistently, he used to always play a lot and just try to never burst, right? When he was low life, he just won't burst. He will essentially get out the combo, or when the opponent dropped or they got the knockdown, even if they just went for the kill, he just told himself he wants to get better at coming back, right? And he eventually did do it. So that's essentially what he did. If you want to do the same thing, you can. Obviously, for your respective game, obviously, but for him, it was, essentially when he's low life, 20%, 50%, 10%, right? Just try to do your best to better the scenario, put yourself in an advantageous situation without having to give up a resource, right? And I kind of do the same thing, right? If I think I can, win a round or win a game without having to spend my burst, I won't do it, right? Because something like that is very crucial. So, essentially, drilling it is going to be the hard part, but it's going to be what sets the foundation in stone of how to actually go about the scenario of making that comeback, right? So, I guess if you wanted to piggyback off of that, but in your own way, but that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about with the drilling.
Yeah, when people use the training stage or practice range or practice mode, whatever it's called in whatever fighting game, going in there, just pressing a few buttons, practicing your combos, moving around, practicing your movement. It's a very it's very easy to become primitive and and practice the things that you're comfortable with in training mode the moment you get in there. But really, there's so many other ways we can use it.
Yeah,
And fortunately for newer fighting game players, the practice mode is getting so much more intuitive, and I'm envious of these newer fighting games because I'm seeing like Street Fighter 6, for
yeah,
example, Tekken 8. Oh my god, Tekken 8. The fact that you can practice like specific scenarios. Oh my gosh, I'm so envious.
yeah. And now we're seeing like replay
We never
assists too.
Yeah, like it's crazy now. Like some people starting now don't understand how good they have it. When we talk about like older versions of Street Fighter, like all you have is like your attack data and how much damage you're doing and the buttons you're pressing. Like that's pretty much it. And like resetting the game. But you know, sorry, back to drilling it. So
Yeah, then enough being a
on the
grandpa.
topic of yeah, on the topic of drilling it, when it comes to like a comeback mindset and game plan, you know, try and alter the matches you play against friends, peers, training partners. Try and force that 1 HP versus full life or full bar against your opponent. And really practice and analyze what you do in those situations. So for example, let's say we boot up, I don't know, let's talk about a different fighting game.
Yeah,
Let's just say we boot up on the topic of Street Fighter 6. Uh let's say we boot up Street Fighter 6, Riot picks Bison, I pick Cammy, and we want to, and I noticed that my comebacks they're not really good, and I don't know why. So what I'd recommend is let's boot up Street Fighter 6. Riot's Bison, I'm Cammy. Uh, Maybe he just brings me to like a near life or sorry, a near death situation, and then we just play from there. Or maybe you guys play in training mode, and the you set it to 1 HP and you just practice from there. Whatever the situation is, however you can manipulate it. Start from the situation where you have nothing, and then just keep playing matches that way. Just keep seeing what you're doing in those situations. Analyze each interaction. See how your pace changes. No, try and notice every little thing that you're doing. How much bar you're spending. How much bar you're accumulating. How much damage you can do with just how many resources you have. There's so many. Again, this whole podcast can be just on drilling it, but at the end of the day, bring yourself to that situation, practice that situation, see how you react, analyze what you're doing, and try and improve each time. Right? Um, Not a lot of people drill this, and I've trained with a lot of people. They'd rather practice combos and movement, but they don't practice the moments that are imperative to any fighting game, really. Um, that's all I want to say. But
Yeah.
I guess that brings us to our next point of like analyzing ourselves. What we also don't see are people VOD reviewing. And what I like to tell everyone, not just people I train with, but like just friends in general, like you can't see the back of your neck without like a mirror or something external. Maybe a friend will tell you what's on the back of your neck. You can't see it. And the fact that you can't see it reveals that you obviously you need help to see what's going on back there. Like VOD reviewing, you won't know what you're bad at, or you won't know what opportunities you have until you watch yourself do it. In the heat of the moment, it's so hard to understand every little thing you might be doing wrong or right. Um, so VOD reviewing, 100%. People just need to start doing it. There's no other way to talk about it. People just need to keep doing it. Just watch themselves constantly, whether it's like a casual match, preferably a tournament match. But um, if you have any VOD footage of yourself, definitely just keep watching it. Look for opportunities. Look for moments in which you can improve. Glaring weaknesses. Anything really. Riot, do you have anything to add to that?
Not much. I actually just blanked. I was gonna say. That was kind of crazy. Bro, I I think I did, but I just blanked for some reason. Oh my god. You were talking. You were
No,
talking
no worries.
about. Wait, bro. There was something I wanted to say. Dog. I'm gonna.
we can I don't know. Was it a word I said that kind of like piqued the thought?
I think it was just the topic in general. I was gonna piggyback off of it and then probably move on, bro. What were we talking about again? Yeah.
VOD reviewing.
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, yeah, yeah. Okay, so yeah, the thing about VAR views, they I am quite literally an example. They do help, because even if, so obviously I think when you're starting out, it also becomes difficult to be able to pinpoint what you, like we mentioned earlier, like the opportunities that come up or that arises. But it comes down to experience, right? With enough experience and enough game knowledge and game sense, you'll eventually get to a point where you don't really need people to, help watch, right? Besides maybe like a high level player for the high level interactions or thought process when it comes to like resources or things of that nature. But watching yourself play can give you ideas. It helps you be able to see yourself play without being in the immediate stress, right? I think that's part of the issue of people viewing and not really noticing things is that, or I mean, well, not noticing things like in the game, because when you're in the game, you're like stressed out. You're thinking about other things. You're not really in the mindset to like, what do I do here? Especially if you again don't have that like skill with like within you from playing, you're not gonna be able to like immediately recall like, okay, so they did this here, let me do this instead, right? But when you're VAR viewing, you're not in that state of mind anymore, right? You are in a more chill, relaxed state, so you can have more clarity when you're watching yourself back, right? So I think that's one reason why it's imperative to watch yourself play. But I think one of the biggest blocks that people have is they are afraid. I'm gonna call a lot of people out, but guess what? I don't care, right? I don't care.
Savage.
A lot of people are afraid to watch themselves back because they don't want to see themselves lose, right? But we have to remind ourselves this is a competitive genre, and if you are serious about competing, you're gonna have to get over that, right? I know I always give credit to this player all the time because they actually help me uh, do better with dealing with losses. But Narath being a solid actual player, I think I credit a lot of his mindsets because I feel like we're the same mentally, right? We have a lot of the same mental struggles in and outside the game. So I think I can kind of take a lot of inspiration of how he deals with a lot of negative situations or losses or whatever. Um, that and also watching a few Brian F videos as well. So eventually I did get to a point where I am able to take a loss better essentially, so I can easily lose in the moment and immediately know what I need to do, what I should have done. I could have did this here, right? And if I can't, I'll watch myself back and same thing, right? Oh, I could have did this here, right? So I think being able to, I don't want to say like be numb to losing, but it's more like it's not the end all be all, right? Just because you lost doesn't mean you're a loser. Everybody loses, right? But the biggest thing separating the best in the world to an average player is when it comes to a loss, the best players in the world know it's part of the job, right? Meanwhile, the average player, they're the ones that act like the end of the world when it's really that's part of the job, right? Especially with it being a one v one game, right? You're playing one other person. Someone has to win, someone has to lose, right? So it's not necessarily you're gonna be this low life scum that lost to uh, Pony Booty Eater 1768. I don't even know. Like, you lost, that's fine, right? Learn from it and watch yourself back and figure out why, right? And if you can't figure out why, then ask, a better player. Even ask the person that beat you, right? You know, I think
Or
that's
ask Pony Booter Eater 43.
yeah.
That's a wild username. I can't believe you just made that up on the spot. Yeah.
Look, when you have a weird mind like me, I don't know.
Oh my god. I'm gonna rename my. That's my new name. That's my new tournament name. Pony Booter Eater. Yo, right? It's the best. So okay. Sorry, on a tangent. Circling back. If you don't mind me taking over
Yeah,
now.
that's fine.
One other thing I want to talk about this, and I'll probably talk about this more later on too, but on the topic of like, as you said, like winning and losing, um, everyone just, no one wants to be the loser. Everyone wants to be the winner.
Yeah,
But very few understand that the real fun is, and this is going to sound corny as hell, the real fun is in learning. It's not winning or losing. It's just constant improvement. And the people who can understand that this duality of I need to winning is good and losing is bad. The people who understand that this duality is ultimately what leads to our downfall are the people that we see on top. Like they don't see losing as bad. They don't see winning as good necessarily. Um like in moments where they win Evo, for example, of course it's good. Of course it's amazing. But in moments where, uh people are just really seeking out pure improvement, the real fun is just in learning from your mistakes, even learning from your wins. Maybe you made a mistake in winning. Maybe you need to learn from that, or anything of similar nature. Like the top players will understand. Like the real fun is in learning how they can do a better combo, learning how they can better position themselves, learning a new, I don't know, I guess a new response to a particular thing, whatever it is. It could
Yeah.
be a multitude of things, but at the end of the day, we need to do better as a fighting game community in understanding that winning and losing are just two things, a part of the same coin. But the real fun is in constant self improvement, and we need to rewire our brain in order to understand that, because it's really hard, because we learn at such a young age. You know, when you're in a competition, there's particular win conditions, and then if you meet those conditions, you win a prize. You know, there's rewards for winning, and there's no rewards for losing. We've learned this at such a young age, but again, if we can successfully rewire ourselves to understand that those things, they matter, but there's something beyond them that can get us to a much higher place, which is, again, constant improvement, learning from our mistakes, learning from our wins, so on and so forth. That's all I wanted to add, because again, like, winning and losing is great, but again, there's
Yeah.
something above that.
Yeah, for sure. I can definitely attest to that for sure. Even just recently, I fought Kizzy again in Strive, and the last time he played was actually around launch, right?
Oh wow.
So that was literally the last time we played. So it's just the fact that when we played originally, his advice was, essentially, since I'm playing a zoner, I attack too much, right? I try too hard to attack when it's better to just kind of hang back and play the position game, since I do outrange him, right? A few days ago, of course, it's been 3 years, and I've done all the things I've done. I accomplished a lot of stuff. I had some accolades for locals, regionals, majors, all this other stuff, right? And I was able to apply that and showcase that I have worked on these things, and that's where my fun comes in, right? Like, whether I win or lose, that's fine, as long as I know that I'm just comp enough to be able to improve where I wanted to, and really apply things that I was taught, and things I want to learn. I think that's more special than me, right? That's where my fun comes in. I like having that back and forth, that adaptation that I need to in order to win. And if I don't win, then oh well, at least I know that I at least put up a fight. Because granted, I know I mentioned earlier about the losses thing. I see Claus in chat saying, or my bad, Jackson in chat saying no one wants to be a loser. It's That's true, right? No one wants to be a loser, but I think you'll have not so much. Well, yeah, actually, yeah. You have a little bit more clarity in like where to go if you have learned how to accept it, right? You lost, so now what can you do, right? It's not so much you're a loser, so you just don't get any worth, right? Like, you played a game, you lost, what can you do, right? It's more so accepting of the fact, rather than just like being down in the dumps because you lost. That's not really going to get you anywhere, right? And like what Claus said, being able to reflect, that's how you're going to be able to then do what I did, right? Know how to attack less, right? Know how to be better at positioning yourself, be better at with punishing at certain ranges, and be able to convert off straight hits, right? That's what's gonna matter in the long run, not just, oh man, I lost. Okay, why? You know, I think that's just the deeper picture that we're trying to portray here. Um, but unless, I guess before we get to our last point, is there any other 1 HP scenarios that you have come across or can think of in your time being a fighting game sweat?
Wait, what?
I mean,
Um, um, Let me think.
can be either from your personal experience or just, I guess, any like tournament or whatever.
Um,
I haven't thought of much myself, honestly, but
well, before we get to the 1 HP scenarios,
yeah,
there was one last thing I want to add.
Yeah,
I feel like a lot of people too are afraid to lose because they're afraid that their community or their friends will crucify them for losing or like make fun of them. But really, the only one crucifying them is them,
yeah,
right? Like we walk away from a fight, and a lot of the time, or every time, we're scared of other people of bringing us down, but really we're walking away thinking in our head like, damn, I'm ass, or damn, I'm really bad at the game. Damn, why am I even playing this game? We walk away with those thoughts, and I understand. It's very easy to fall victim to those thoughts, but um, it's it's a lifelong battle. You're gonna have to keep fighting. You're gonna have to keep trying to figure out how to think differently from that. But it takes just rolling with the punches. Just keep playing. If you do have friends that are crucifying you, you should just find new friends at that point. Like,
yeah,
unless they're doing it for fun, like they're calling you ass for fun, but really they're supporting you and they're trying to help you out. Like that's different. But if you really have friends that are just trying to bring you down, definitely figure out how you can change your environment. But with that said, 1 HP scenarios. Honestly, there was one anecdotal experience I have was, and this still runs through my mind like every now and then. But I was playing in a tournament in Vancouver, and it was Dragon Ball Fighters. I think I showed this on stream before, but um, it was 1v3, similar to Go One versus Leffen,
yeah.
except I was 21 and they had Ginyu, and they I had next to no resources, and they had everything. Um, well, I did have Spark, but they didn't have Spark, so that's a big difference. But they managed to Ginyu swap me. So long and behold,
Uh,
I'm Ginyu, and they have three characters. And honestly, in my head, it did strike me that this is next to impossible because Ginyu, and I learned this in that match. You can't level 3 with Ginyu.
no, body swap getting you has to be like legit bottom one.
Yeah, like it's absolutely terrible. And well, technically you can level 3, but it's got to be the orb.
Yeah,
It's got to be the level 3 orb, which in itself it's less than decent damage, but it does do hard knockdown, I think. Um, but fast forward, so I'm Ginyu, bottom one. I have Spark. They have my character and their own two characters, and I fortunately take down one character, so now it's 2v1. Then I take down no, and then I let out a loose normal, and then confirm into a full combo and kill the second one. It was a miracle, by the way. And then the third one, I'm still in Spark, and he just starts to crumble. Like he's starting to shake, and I can see it through his gameplay. Like he's moving in ways that are very sporadic and like fearful. So I just take advantage of those emotions, and that kind of calms me down a little bit. Like when I see someone like getting a little too like sporadic and a bit too like scrambly. I don't know why, but it calms me down knowing that the other person is like struggling,
yeah,
like
I get it.
emotionally struggling.
Yeah, I get it.
Um, so then long story short, I come back and the guy looks at me for a solid like 10, 15 seconds, and I'm just like, and I don't look at him. I see him in my peripheral vision, but I don't look because I know in the moment I was so cocky. I was like, in my head I was like, I'm that guy, I'm that guy, I'm that guy, and I didn't want anyone to see that I'm being this egotistic to myself because I'm not that type of person. But in my head I was on cloud nine.
No,
Um,
I'm not gonna lie. I think you have at least some right to be Brett's body swap getting you 1v3.
yeah, yeah.
Like yeah,
Did
really.
did you
like no access to any of the Ginyu Force, no, barely any access to like anything. You're like, bro, like come on.
Dude, you know what he looks like when he tries to call upon his Ginyu Force?
He's just like,
It looks like he's choking.
bro,
It's so funny. And
man.
you know what's funny too? I had to learn all that in that moment. I had to learn you can't call Ginyu Force. I had to learn you can't level 3. Like I had to make those mistakes before actually realizing I couldn't do those things.
Yep.
It was so sad.
You know, I get it.
But did you have one? Did you have a scenario
Um,
that you want to recall?
for a personal one, I think this is actually funny. I have two, but I'm gonna go with the one that's more funny rather than that's more cool. Right, right.
Fair enough.
So yeah, I was playing Strive. It was early Strive. I think it was like right before I started getting like actually decent at the game, right? So it was in the full. I was getting the names mixed up. Full combo. The Cali guys, with like Prometheus and I forgot what his name. Damn. It's alright. But
Player
yeah,
two, player two.
yeah, player two, and yeah. So and Danny, right? That was there. Yeah, Danny.
Okay.
Yeah, I was playing a full combo bracket. I think it was so early in the bracket, but I was fighting Amelia, right? So as y'all know, I play Axel, right? So this is already not looking good for me, right? So I'm gonna say the scenario, and I'm gonna say how I was actually thinking, right? Because it might be a little bit counterintuitive to the point, but you'll see in a sec here, right? So I find Amelia. I think at this point, I got knocked down. I don't remember the entire scenario. I just know it's a clip as well on my TikTok and everything. So it's not like I'm making this up, right? If I can't remember everything, just find the clip, right? So I got knocked down, and essentially they're just still doing a million things, mix me up 8 ways, 18 different ways, hitting me high, low, left, right, up and down, loop de loop, right, uh, all over in the corner, right. So I burst, right. I burst, and I'm like pretty low life. I think like one combo can kill me. Granted, the Amelia player, they weren't like full life, but it was enough to where, you know, I definitely should have just let him have the round. It was at that point. Uh, but nonetheless, I did opt to use my burst. The Amelia player essentially comes back over to me, and I think I like made him block something, and I do like 2K2D snail. They try to air block the snail, and then I RC charge dust. The charge dust hits somehow, right?
Oh no.
And of course it's Milia, and so I just do a dust combo and I kill, right? And I took the game. I think at that point it was like 1-0 or 2-0, I think. So now back to my mindset in the scenario, right? So I have fought this Milia player a few times actually, but up to this moment, right? So I kind of just know as long as I'm chill, they're not gonna adapt. So I can pretty much just like run my game plan and be fine. But of course, it's Amelia. So I still have to be careful of, doing preemptive anti-airs. I have to be more slippery, and things like that nature, right? And then if I'm in the vortex, I gotta just, I'm hoed, basically, right? So I'm in the blender, and I have this like flicker in my brain, right? And I just go, what if I win this right now? And I press my burst button, right? So that's like I wasn't really afraid, right? Because I just know as long as I have my confidence in check, which that's a pretty big thing with me. I know if I can, I know if I feel, chill or at least somewhat confident in my ability, then I'll be fine, right? I was getting mixed, and it was a scenario where I probably should let him have it, but the clip would have been too good if I bursted right there, right? So that's pretty much my mindset of, what if I win this right now? So I didn't give up, right? I didn't let him have it, right? Was it a dumb burst? Maybe, right? But it would have been a dumb burst if I lost. But
True.
so I did, remember, I can still do this. So I bursted. They eventually get in on me again, And then I think I have to do something here because I can't let him control the pace because if I have to block anything, I might just lose right now, right? Um, Granted, I think this was about the time where I was somewhat consistently reacting to Mirage, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But it was still a scenario where I didn't want to have him have control, considering the next hit on me, I lose, versus the first hit on them. Depending on the hit, granted, it is Axel, so I'm not going to get too many crazy hits, right? I might not be able to get that kill, so I have to make this count, right? So I eventually did something scrubby, right? I just, you know what? If I do something dumb and I get punished, I lose anyways. My burst is gone. I have to do something, right? So I do a negative 24 on block move, RC, and then I just thought, you know what? I'm gonna just 2K their landing and then charge dust, cause why not? And then it hit. I won the game, right? So
Solid.
yeah, that it just comes down to, I saw that I was low life. I didn't even care. As a matter of fact, I was absurdly confident because I bursted that, you know. So I guess that's just the whole premise of the topic of being when you're down, tell me it's over. So, well, I believe there's one more thing that we gotta get into, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, sorry. I also want to bring up, sorry, the one last situation and just the image we've been referencing this whole time. I think that again is the peak of like the comeback game plan and mindset. Because we have Go One, multi fighting game professional. We have Leffen. At the time, people didn't respect him as a DBFC player because he's a melee player. But here he is, going toe to toe with Goichi. So I guess we would consider him a multi fighting game professional as well, especially now with Guilty Gear, DBFC.
Yeah.
You know, we have two titans just going at it, and I don't know if you remember how this last situation played out, but it was like one really huge brain cell just fighting against itself. Like these guys were going toe to toe. These guys were just blocking each other. Yeah, there was a whole sequence of them just blocking each other for like at least 20 in-game seconds. Um, Mix up after mix up, like it was just one. It's just like it's just constant clashing. Um, Staying true to Dragon Ball nature. Um, but yeah, if anyone hasn't watched Goichi versus Leffen, last game, last round, last character, definitely go watch it. It's if there's anything to learn about the comeback game plan and mindset, it's you can find everything just in that clip, just in those few seconds, or in that minute and a half of that match. Um, but yeah, I just had two other points to bring up. So um, if you guys have any situations of your own, definitely share in the chat or with us online. But there was one point where I want to talk about specifically when you start to realize you're in a situation where you have nothing and your opponent has everything, and everyone eventually comes to the realization sometime during the match. In the case of the image that we've shared with Leffen versus Goichi, it was probably when Goichi's Vegeta died. That's probably when he was like, okay, it's game on. I got to do something. I got to pull something out. He has everything. I have nothing. But there are some things I do have, and I call this point the grand recollection. And the reason why I call it is because I see it as like a that's so Raven moment, like when all the information just starts to flow at this given time. And this I feel like this situation only happens when you start to realize you're in a moment of realizing you have nothing versus realizing your opponent has everything. It's a fight or flight situation, and I feel like we a lot of times when in like high level matches, players will often have this realization, and then suddenly all the information just starts to flow. Like what things you did successfully before, you start to remember. The things that you failed before and attempted starts to uh, circle back in your mind. You start to remember what he might have failed to block, that one mix up. All the information just starts to flow. And I feel like this only happens when, one, we let all the information come to us, and two, we start to realize and come to terms with us having no resources versus them having everything. Um, so at this point in time, when you start to realize, okay, I have nothing and they have everything, it's really important to channel that information, whatever that information is. Maybe it's not everything. Maybe it's only a few things that come across your mind. It's important to channel this information to the best of your ability. So, for example, like, you know, if you had them in the corner and they were standing up a lot, this particular situation may enforce the idea that maybe you should poke out a low forward while they're in the corner when you catch them standing. Maybe it might work, maybe it might not. But again, you have to be able to not only channel the information, but take low risks with respect to the information that you're able to inherit from remembering all this information and allowing this information to flow. And using mental stack to your advantage. Um, Mental stack, according to the definition, I will look it up really quick. It's how much focus a player can devote to different strategies in a match. It's common that a player will struggle to do seemingly easy tasks because their mind is trying to focus on multiple things at once. So, on that note, I think being in a 1v3 situation has its benefits. For one, you as the person who only has one character or low resources, you don't really have to think about what you don't or do have. You're just kind of in acceptance with what you have. You come to terms that, okay, I have this many resources. This Let's see what we can do. Instead of the person who has everything, like they're on cloud nine, they know they're in supreme advantage. It's really easy to get complacent when you have everything. So when it comes to mental stack, I think what's important is using all the things that you know your opponent is thinking about, but also weak to. So, like, if they're heavily focused on anti-airs, if they're heavily focused on the footsie game, if they're heavily focused on making you or waiting for you to make a mistake, channel these ideas. Start to really dial in on these ideas, while also understanding mental stack. If you can understand these two ideas, I think that will help create a better comeback game plan for yourself. Because then you have options. If you know that they're thinking about X, but they're not thinking about Y, test that theory. Take low risks, test out the theories in your head, see what works, see what doesn't. But circling all the way back in this podcast, take your time. If there's one thing that we'd probably want people to walk away from this podcast is take your time, analyze all the things before this particular moment, and start to form a game plan. Because if you have no plan, then you're only planning to fail. So circling back to the main point, so the grand recollection, allow all these ideas to flow, take your time to channel them. In inheriting all this information, use it and use mental stack to your advantage, and take your time. That's what I call the grand recollection. And again, I feel like it only happens, I feel like it can happen at any moment, but it especially triggers when you start to realize you have absolutely nothing and you're on the brink of death. So like a fight or flight situation. Um, that was a lot of rambling, but Riot, if you have anything to say about that.
Yeah, I think one of the best things that those that can also derive from that as well is being aware of how to balance risky plays yet be still remain reserved, right? Being able to kind of have logical risk reward scenarios and be able to play that in your mind can also play into a part of when you're actually on the verge of making that comeback. Just like kind of like you said, like this person, even a scenario where I know, like for me, right, um, a big kind of play for against Axel is he has his 2-on-4S, right, where he jumps back and leaps, and you can't really block that, right. So since it's 24 frames of startup, but yet it's still weird because he doesn't have that much recovery. The opponent can jump it, right, and you can't jump on reaction. The main issue is that you don't get a solid punish depending on your character if you react, right? If you preemptively jump, you can get a punish, right? Or preemptively IAD, essentially, right? But preempting the incendiary dash is a problem because he has 2-on-4H, which is a frame trap, right? So a lot of the time, I will do something simple like 2K2D, and I'll go for just a random 2-on-4S, right? Just out of autopilot, right? And I see my opponent jump. Sometimes I'm like, you know, I don't think he reacted. So I'm gonna frame trap you next time, right? Granted, the frame trap itself, it's -24 on block, so I'm quite heavily risking myself throwing this move out, right? But it does net me decent reward on at least counter hit, both regular and 25 meter. So I'll do that sometimes, right? I'll just do 2K2D and I'll throw 2-on-4H, and it'll hit. I'm like, okay, thought so, right? So even scenarios like that where you have to gauge that scenario where you think, okay, I think they're looking out for this, so I might just do this instead, right? Just to kind of see if they're actually looking for that, right? That's me gauging risk reward, right? I'm taking a big risk, but I mean, in this scenario, the reward isn't that good because I don't get that big of a combo without meter, right? So it's not like it's crazy, right? I probably could pick a better example, but nonetheless, you see the point, right? I'm having to risk me being -24 and with a move that just about the entire cast can punish, even pot now, which is crazy. Um, but looking at scenarios like that can easily help you gauge what decisions to be making in scenarios where you're making that comeback, because you're better at gauging that risk reward, right? But still being able to remain reserved, as I mentioned before, right? Um,
Yeah.
Also, kind of backing off of that, thinking of a few actions to commit to instead of thinking about all the things you like to do, right? Don't mental stack yourself, I think is the picture here, right? Or
Yeah. Yeah.
also
Yeah.
some might say smaller circle, clear the vision, right? Um, you don't want to mental stack yourself into thinking all the things you need to do. Think step by step. Think, okay, so I'm gonna play neutral here. I'm not really gonna fish for hit. I'm just gonna take what's given to me, and then once I get that hit, and then focus on that. Right? You get the hit. Okay, now what? What is the safest string you can go for without necessarily putting yourself at a big risk, while also netting yourself good reward if it works, right? Um, but nonetheless, do not cloud your mind to make things difficult, because the more stuff you add to your mind, the worse it's gonna be in terms of being able to have clearer vision, right? Being able to see ahead of you because you're just not necessarily thinking of the now. You're thinking of the now and then and the then and the then, right? When you need to focus on now, right? Have a scenario. Okay, you're neutral. Okay, bet. What's your game? Get your game plan, right? What's the strat? Okay, you got the hit. Cool. Now, what is the first string? Whether it wants to be like a test string, or I guess in this case it's a comeback scenario. You might want to kind of up the ante a little bit, right? It kind of just depends on the scenario, right? So essentially, don't overload yourself and don't mental stack yourself, right? Think of the just the present and taking a step by step of the best course of action, and then kind of keep having building blocks off of that one scenario. Um, but yeah, I think that was all I really wanted to get into off of the recollection portion.
Yeah, I really like the point we have about just narrowing the thinking process, because a lot of the times, I see it way too often with like um lower to average level players. They'll do too much. They'll just think too much. Like, I could have done this, I could have done that. I can do this, I can do that. Like, chill out, man. And these thoughts that they have, it truly does reflect in their gameplay. Like, they just, once again, they do too much, they commit to too much. It almost looks like they're trying to do two things at once. It looks like they
Yeah,
want to jump, but then they commit to a little forward. It's so much at once. And honestly, people who do this, they're not really looking to play fighting games at the level that at a higher level. It's quite clear that they're only playing to just have fun, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're really trying to, improve, and if you're really trying to understand how to play fighting games in their true essential form, you know take your time, have a game plan, narrow your decision making, and you don't got to stress yourself out. You don't have to bully yourself. You don't have to
yeah,
mental stack yourself, as you said. um and also, as you said earlier, smaller the circle, clear the vision. Telescopes help us see farther. Microscopes help us see closer, or smaller objects. Be clear with yourself, and be clear with your game plan. Don't think about A, B, C, D, E, F, G all at once. Try and stick to one or two options, and narrow the risk. If you think you're gonna gain a high reward from a low risk move, sorry, if you think you're gonna gain a high reward from doing what you think you're gonna do, don't think about the reward. Think about the risk. Don't think about the silver lining. Don't think about the light at the end of the tunnel. Just keep trekking along. Take your time, and just focus on what you need to do.
yeah,
Um, I guess that brings us to our next point. There was, I know we talked about this earlier, about thinking about what's right and wrong in fighting games, and I think we're cursed in thinking this way. And honestly, I see so many of my friends who I still see play fighting games to this day fall victim to, like, as I mentioned earlier, like the duality of what is right and wrong in fighting games.
yeah,
Because again, we've been cursed since birth. Like, you get rewarded when you do something good, and you don't when you do something bad. And it treks along with us, and it shows in fighting games. Like, if you think, especially in tier lists, like, man, we need to burn tier lists to the ground, honestly. When we say this character's bad and this character's good, and then people start to play this character versus ignoring this other character, like, it's just so obscure. Like, clearly they're quite strong, clearly they're winning tournaments, but to say that one is should be used and the other shouldn't, I think that depletes our ability to express, for our ability for expression and freedom in fighting games. And ultimately, it creates such a narrow mindset, especially in gameplay. So, for example, like, if someone learns, use this button instead of that button, this button is better than that button in this particular situation. In most cases, that will be, or not in most, maybe in some cases that'll be the correct way of thinking. Like, use this button and not that button. But experiment, be open minded, start to consider the things that people are saying are bad, as not as something that's bad, but treat it as an option. treat it as something that can be used in an opportunity. Um, there's this classic saying, a good worksman never blames his tools. You know, just because you have a bad character or you're in a bad situation or this normal isn't good as perceived by the wider public, that doesn't mean you need to blame that particular normal or that particular character as being bad, as being wrong. We like as a fighting game community, we need to be more open to, using all of our tools, using all of our options. Just because, 2S or 2L is considered a bad normal doesn't mean it's unusable. It's clearly usable, and it's our job to figure out how to best use it. Even if people are saying it's bad, even if people are saying, okay, yeah, this character's ass. Like, okay, they're ass, but why? Why can't I use them? We shouldn't just strictly take things off the shelf. Like, we need to be able to use all of our tools, all of our characters, all the options. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, especially when people say like, you have like, man, whenever I go into like character discords, they're always like, you have to do this, you have to do that. You can't you can't use that option. It's not optimal. You know that in itself is restricting our way of playing fighting games. And honestly, we don't see that course of action in the much higher level, uh I guess, playing field, because they use all of their tools. They don't restrain themselves from using just a certain particular set of tools. What separates a top player from a higher than average or an average player is that they're not telling themselves, okay, this character is good because XYZ. I can only use ABC normals. They're doing everything. They're using every single tool. They're doing things that not everyone else is doing, and that's what's separating them from you know lesser skilled players. Did you have anything to say about that? I feel like I spoke a lot about that.
Very good. Um, Honestly, not much. I think you covered most things I kind of wanted to get into in that regard. Um, as far as like, I think that could also play into a part of I guess since we're talking about the mindset of a comeback thing, a comeback situation. Um, it still kind of plays into the risk reward thing, but don't kind of think about, oh, this is like there's gonna be right and wrongs, but I think we need to have a bit more loose approach to it. Is the thing like there are just sometimes a scenario where, yeah, sure, this move isn't really gonna make sense, right? But like you said, it can be still applied elsewhere. I deal with that a lot, right? Where even for especially now, we're since and specifically in like Guilty Gear, there might be some other games as well. We're not seeing that many moves, right? Like a character might only have like four special moves, right? So there's not a lot of room to, like there's not much variety, right? But I think that also plays into a part of there that actually can be, right? Because you kind of can get creative, right, with the way you use your moves. I know one off the top of my head is with being Axel. I mentioned earlier about touring for H being a move that's like just terrible to use in a block string because it's -24. But the air version of that is actually even more talked about more negatively. However, I actually granted, if I explain the move, it's gonna sound terrible, right? It's like minimum -28, right? A lot of ending lag. You can't really act after you throw it out, right? Not much reward. Well, it has more reward than the grounded version, but it's not like crazy, right? So of course, if I'm gonna like explain the moves, then you'll probably think, oh man, the moves, kind of lackluster, right? So it's a decent air stall because he like lingers in the air for a bit when he throws it out. Decent range as well. It covers like half the screen, and it arcs, right? So it is able to hit at a wide range and also hit a lot of that angle at that dead zone, right? Or at that space. Versus characters like Jacko, Go Lewis, ones that can kind of just put stuff on the screen. You can easily, or even Dizzy to an extent. now you're able to kind of just like throw it out, right, and get a free counter hit, right? So yeah, again, like on paper, yeah, sure, move sucks, sure, but I think that kind of limits people's thinking in ways of, okay, well, this move just sucks. I'm just not going to use it, right? Rather than, maybe it's applicable somewhere, even if it's niche, right? Because, like I said, like Guilty Gear Strive specifically, there's not a lot of moves in the game, right? So you're going to have to be creative to an extent. Um, but again, that can also play into back to the comeback situations, right? Where maybe you are playing that matchup where that move may come up, right? So you can't really dismiss a move for being bad just because it's bad, right? Which, side note, I wish people would actually learn what bad means, but whatever, right? Um, so yeah,
Or
maybe,
broken.
yeah, I like bad and broken. It's like one of the two of the many terms that just lost its meaning, but yeah. What if you are playing that matchup where that niche move comes up and you win because of it, right? Like I just talked about doing air 214H versus like Jacko. I won a tournament set versus strong Jacko players exactly by doing that, right? I will air dash and throw that move out. It counter hits her, and I get a combo, and I won, right? Like it's not so much of this move is unusable, right? Or bad, trash, garbage. It just has its niche and it's up to you to find it, right? And like I said before, if you are in that comeback scenario, you might have to use it. You have to use what's given to you and have that play into your risk reward. But that's really all I had to say about that scenario, that topic.
Yeah, I just want to summarize it because I mean we spoke a lot about it earlier, so I did. But um, so the duality of what is right and wrong. Um, we should be aware that we've been classifying things just in general as right or wrong constantly since birth. And honestly, we do it a lot, especially in fighting games. This character is good. This character is bad. This move is good. This move is bad. I shouldn't use this move at all. Blah 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 blah. We should also be aware that what we may classify as right or wrong may not be the right classification. We have to be open with ourselves that what we once considered something as bad, maybe it's not so bad if applied, as you said, in a niche scenario. Um, we have to be open minded to the idea that we can restructure how we think about things. And there's an issue with this for a lot of people because they're not open minded to the idea that they can change the way they think about a particular thing, whether it's a classification or not, just being able to change the way they think about certain things. Some people are just hard focused on being right about this character playing in a certain way. We all know those types of people. You know, this character should be played this way and only this way. You should only use this move because it's good and blah 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 blah. You should never use this move because it's so bad. Blah 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 blah. We know those players. There's so many of them. But at the end of the day, and I don't mean this in a cocky way, but we destroy those players because they think that way.
I mean,
So don't be that player. We have to be able to be open minded to the idea of rewiring our brain to think differently and open minded so that we can intercept new ideas and channel them to our advantage. So just because, X move is bad and everyone's saying it's bad, that's the time to say, okay, maybe it's not bad, as they say. Let's figure out how we can use it so it's not bad. Maybe it's a niche scenario, blah, 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 whatever. In moments of high stress, so like down to the wire, etc., where everything may seem and feel wrong and impossible, this is where we need ourselves the most to start, as I said, reclassifying things, rewiring our brain um, as right or wrong, and instead thinking of things as opportunities. As I said, a bad worksman blames his tools. So on the other side, a good worksman doesn't blame his tools, but is able to capitalize on using all of his tools in different ways, in niche ways maybe. um, each opportunity has a set of risks, but in fighting games it'll come down to which are the least risky yet most rewarding. So once again, we can only get to this point in time when we start reclassifying, when we start rewiring ourselves, and we have to be open-minded to this. A lot of people are not, and it's scary. We know those players. When we talk to them, they're like, when we try and give them feedback, but they're like, no, 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 no. I know what I'm doing. This is right. You're wrong. I've won 2 matches because I've done this out of 50. We know those players who are not open-minded, who are not open-minded to the idea of reclassifying things, who are not open-minded to rewiring their brain in such a way that can provide more advantage to them, more opportunities to them. And this is in no way mocking them, but as the podcast suggests, this is a way for people to just wake up. Maybe you are one of those players and you're just like, man, maybe I do think that way. This is the time to just wake up, just start doing things differently. This is also a call to action for everyone, really, to start thinking about the way they currently play fighting games, to start rethinking and analyzing what they could be doing better to avoid these issues that we keep bringing up, such as players who aren't open-minded to new ideas, who are restricting themselves to certain ideas. We want to, our incentive is to hopefully wake up those players and insert new ideas, new ways of thinking. But that was the last point. I guess just as a recap, we first talked about eliminating scrambling, practicing composure. So when we spoke about this, we noted, players who have no idea what they're doing will often scramble because they're doing things that they never taught themselves. They're practicing things they've never practiced. And so you scramble. That's why you scramble. That's why we all scramble. Everyone has scrambled one time or another. And this is why you scramble. So practice composure. Practice things you need to practice. And when you catch yourself scrambling, take your time. Next, we talked about handling negative emotions. And we mentioned, it's okay to have these negative emotions. It's okay to welcome them. It's okay to be a negative Nancy. But at the end of the day, we need to all be able to excuse me. We need to be able to channel those negative emotions into opportunities. For example, if you're scared, take your time, start to analyze the situation, back off maybe, start to recount all the things that you've done right, all the things you've done wrong, and same thing for your opponent. Just take that time. Take your time. Take the time to just set the pace of the match and gain that information and channel those emotions. Because there's no way a human is able to control their emotions and play the game all at once. You just can't. Or sorry, there's no way you can control your emotions and try and win a match all at once. There's steps to this. Next, we talked about the mindset needed for 1 HP scenarios, which was kind of covered like overall. Being able to channel these negative emotions, welcoming them, how to handle all that. We also mentioned it's not over until it's over. Classic quote. But remember to analyze, take your time. Try not to think about, playing to lose. Try not to think about, all the things going wrong. For example, what else? We spoke about how to get better at 1 HP scenarios. by drilling it. You know, training mode has evolved over time and significantly. Um, so we need to take advantage of those changes. If you suffer from specific situations, just like, you know, if you're bad at combos or if you're bad at neutral, you know, if you're bad at 1 HP scenarios, put yourself in that situation, practice with your friends, uh, VOD review yourself in those situations, see where you're going wrong with it. Um, and on that point, we talk about VOD reviewing yourself, which is crucial to identify clear and glaring weaknesses. Then we just had a casual segment about recalling best 1 HP scenarios. One of which that stands out to us, which was the image that we keep bringing up, which is the Leffen versus Goichi match, last game, last round. Um, we talked about the grand recollection, similar to like, think of it as like a That's So Raven moment that is typically engaged and felt when you're in like a fight or flight scenario. Um, when you're in this situation, it's important that you let all the information flow and that you channel it and use that information to your advantage. Then we talked about narrowing decisions, smaller the circle, clearer the vision, balancing risk rewards, and of course the duality of thinking right or wrong, being open minded to new ideas, reclassifying things, reclassifying how we think of we think what is right and what is wrong, and overall just being open minded to the whole process. Riot, I talked way too much. Did you have anything to add to anything that I mentioned within the past few minutes?
Yeah. Not, not much. The pretty covered everything that was said tonight, really, which is the point. So I guess with that being said, thank y'all for tuning into the first installment of the 623 podcast. A lot more topics to come. Yeah, we're definitely cooking. Looking to be consistent with this, so hope y'all tune in. If you're interested, you can go ahead and follow me on my socials, as well as my co-host being Nick here. Make sure you tune in to the next one, whenever that will be, because we definitely are cooking a lot of topics. There are a lot of topics that need to be said, because I think these are just crucial in every competitive game in every scenario. So we're gonna be touching down a lot of these. So yeah. Once again,
Oh, sorry, one last thing.
oh yeah.
If there's any questions in the chat, or if you
Oh,
guys want us to cover a particular topic in some future segment, or if you have feedback for us, just as we were discussing earlier, we're open minded to feedback. We're open minded to doing things differently. If you have anything to say about how we handle this podcast, let us know, and yeah, we will act on it from there. But yeah, for any questions, let us know now, and yeah, we'll answer right now. But right, how'd you think we did? That was our first one.
oh yeah, that was the first one. Yeah. I think it was better. Probably did a little bit better with like length and keeping things concise to the point. But I think the point got across. So sorry if you hear yelling in the background. There's currently the Tyson Paul fight right now. I'm like trying to trying to move, but
Nah, all good,
yeah,
all good.
yeah, but yeah, I think it was handled well. But of course, like you said, for any feedback or anything like that, make sure y'all you can hit either one of us up. Of course, our Twitters is in the chat right now, and of course, y'all, most people in the chat right now, they're more familiar with me, so y'all can just go and like add me somewhere. Um, but yeah, definitely looking for more feedback as well as topics or mindset things, and if there's enough talking points. It'll either be its own thing or it could be a little miniature thing within a big topic. So yeah, is it gonna be a regular thing? Yes, it's gonna be a regular thing. Hopefully, most likely weekly. But just not like a set day, if I recall. But these will be at least relatively weekly. Um, yeah,
We should probably like schedule a specific day if
yeah,
possible.
yeah. That's hopefully be the end goal. I know my schedule's kind of like assed out right now, so I it's not really. as soon as I'm able to get like a actual like, cause I still do like Uber Eats and stuff, but once I get another like regular job again, then it'll be much easier to start planning. So I'll let you know, as well as people watching right now. Um, but yeah, I believe that's everything that we wanted to go through today. So once again, for any feedback, hit us up. Thank y'all for tuning in. Anything you want to say to the people, Nick, before I rate out?
No, thank you, Ryan, for letting me join you on stream. I look forward to doing this. We have a lot of other topics coming up, like we want to talk about, picking the right character, what to do if you've plateaued, how do you know if you're progressing, being efficient versus flashy, so many other topics. But if you have any suggestions for topics, we're definitely open to it. Again, there's no reason to do this unless there's people interested, and we want everyone to participate in some way, whether it's giving us feedback or giving us topics to discuss. We're open to everything, so let us know.
Yeah, for sure. With that being said, once again, thank y'all for tuning in, and with that, we out. Peace.